Welcome, my friends. Today we are going to be taking a look at the iPhone 3G with iOS 2 on it. And iOS 2 is what I call the first version of real iOS. The ones on the iPhone original, that was like not a real version of iOS because it didn't have the App Store or the iTunes Store on it. Unlock it, and this is it. This is all you get. Period. You can put other apps on here and use those. So coming back here, first thing that you see is this is not a standard HD display. Things just look so much different on here versus here, and I'll get to some of the comparisons in a second of these two. Just gonna take a quick look at the home screen for a second. Okay, so there are so many differences here. How iOS has evolved and basically from time to time over and over again. So this has an AT&T chip in it. This one has an eSIM, so I can't really put anything in it. But so it's gonna have some contacts, so I can show you how that works. But this is just the basics. Like some of the apps are still the same, but like folders, that was released in iOS 3. You could not have folders like watch. Like there's no folders whatsoever. It just doesn't exist. I'm going to talk about like the different hardware features of this phone. So one thing we're going to talk about first is the reliability factor of these phones. These phones are so dang reliable. Like I have a phone that's 12 years old now and it's still so reliable. So this is iOS. We're going to do the settings first. iOS 2.2. iOS 2 was 900 megabytes. That's the entire iPhone OS on iOS 2. This is the first iOS, what I would call the first major version of iOS. So this is the version that a lot of people bought the 3G because 2G speeds when going on the internet is not good. This is go out. And let me get my glasses on. Just hold on one second. The thing I want to talk about first is about preserving data, future generations. This is what iOS was like. We're going to talk about its hardware. So we have a headphone jack on top with a SIM card port, sleep on. This is like, you can kind of hear it, which is kind of cool. Pause in the middle, volume up, volume. These are the only iPhones that had a play pause feature in the middle of them. And this was directly reflected in the iPods. On the bottom we have speaker grills, 30-pin connector, pin. This one's 30 pin. This is what iOS was looking like. Like you had a built-in YouTube app. You had only SMS texting. iOS 5 came out with basically texting if you had an iPhone. It was blue, but this is all green, and you can even see the SMS logo on here. This is only in versions 1 and 2. So going here took that long over SMS. Is the same. Oh no, that's interesting. So the iPhone 3G, the clock stays the same. The minute hand is stuck on 10:15.
Moving about it, but if you look at it for a while, you'll see that it actually has a moving second hand that's really, really cool. So as you see here, it shows the little second hand, that's the red one moving, and it's pretty much like a stopwatch on your home screen.
Almost 2D, where this is almost like more 3D. You can see the reflection, and these apps kind of pop off for the background. There's less shadows on here because it's a black screen. You can't put a home screen on here. On here, but you can't put something on a lock screen. This was meant to save battery because on an LCD screen, all the pixels have to be on. And so basically these pixels that are black, they're on. And so you can kind of see them. This display is also not laminated. Where the iPhone 4's display is laminated. So little background information about an LCD display. On an LCD display, when something is black, the pixels are constantly switching between red, green, and blue to make the image appear black at 60 frames a second. So by doing this, it saves battery life because red, green, and blue aren't being used all the time. It's switching between them. And when you have a wallpaper, it's displaying that one pixel all the time. And then it has to load all of the app icons over that. And then when you scroll between your different pages of apps, it has to render all of that tracing, and it has to make sure that those pixels move, but the wallpaper stays the same, and that those pixels then turn on to reveal more of the wallpaper. And on the 3G and 2G, with their limited processing power and graphical performance, this was not an option. So the iPhone 3GS had a kind of block calendar app. It wasn't anything to brag about. It was your simple calendar. You had your months, you had your days, and then you could click on different events at the bottom to see what was going on that day. No one really used that feature, and they ended up getting rid of it because, as you can see, you can't really see much on that tiny display. This is the iPhone 4 calendar app, and it added a lot of things. It was still the same layout and the same view, but you also had more space at the bottom. And then on the 3GS, there was this list view, same on the iPhone 4 with iOS 5. And then you had your day by day. But one of the things is that you couldn't tilt it to see a weekly view, where on the iPhone 4 with iOS 5, you could tilt it and then flip through the weeks. And there was this really cool animation, like in a calendar, where the pages would turn. Okay, so double tapping the home button gets you to your contacts, where in the newer versions of, okay, so this gets you to your contacts. So if I double click once, home, contacts. So going into photos, you can see camera roll. It's just the home screen.
Features on iOS 5 is iOS 2. We're gonna make it short. So first is the App Store. Now this does not load because it's so dated, but it's basically the same thing as this App Store here with the categories. And the screen is working at 30 FPS, where the iPhone 4's is at 60, so it's gonna be a lot.
So the Maps app was very simple. You just typed in where you wanted to go, and it gave you turn-by-turn directions to get you there. There would be little arrows on top of the screen, and the same kind of menu system that iOS has now, where you have your directions at the top, but it didn't give you like turn-by-turn directions and anything. You kind of had to read the display and judged by the blue dot where you wanted to go. You could drop one pin. There was a satellite view. There was a traffic view. And that was basically it. Traffic was not available in all areas, though, only a certain few. And there wasn't any, like, AI in there for you to just search up coffee and get a list of coffee shops in your area. If you wanted to do that, you had to go on Safari, get the coffee shop, write down the address, and then reinsert the address into the search bar, and then get to where you needed to go. So it was a lot of two-step processes. There wasn't any multitasking, so you couldn't double click to find your way and then copy stuff in. You had to have a piece of paper with you if you wanted to get to a bunch of places in Maps. And that was pretty much it. Maps was very... The weather app is the same as the iPhone 4's, but there's a difference. You can't tap to get the Saturday news. So it's just you get what's going on now and what's going on tomorrow and the rest of it. You can't get hour by hour, which is kind of limiting, but in 2008, it was pretty nice. Notes, still the same thing as the iPhone 4. It's just the application looks a little bit different. So basically you don't have the lowercase and the uppercase. You just have this that tells you when you're going uppercase. You got your numbers panel. Everything is good here. So next we're gonna go on. Now settings is where literally all of the features are for this iPhone. So you have iPod. You can download your songs, photos, Safari. You can clear history, clear catchy. Oh, developer. This is pretty standard, like, in general. Let's see. So we don't have Facebook or Twitter that we could put on the screen. Okay. Okay, so this is the wallpapers that we have. Okay, so these are just some of the wallpapers. Like, some of them here are not in iOS 5, and that's just something that Apple does, taking down wallpapers. This fetch new data thing. So this is something that was put on so that when you can sync up to Mobile Me, you can fetch data. And also for messages and mail, these phones were not like always on checking for data. So basically this setting means that every single time I unlock this phone, that's when it checks for messages and stuff. So I don't get pinged unless this thing is on. You have to do it yourself, or you can do it every 15 minutes. So sound, you have to change all of the sound vibrate settings in here. You can't really do that anywhere else. Brightness, you can only change in here. Screen doesn't get very bright, but low brightness is better. 2.1. So the plus EDR means that you can use it with headphones. If it's not EDR, then you cannot use it with headphones. So the home button. Oh, if you double click the home button, this is what you can do. And this is something that's not in the other iOSs because the double click opens multitasking, but you had a choice of what to do with your home button. So date and time, set timer max. This is what the time of day it thinks it is. International. All right, so wait, what's that number there? I don't know why that's there. That's not really. And then reset should just scrap your device, but this one's pretty much already resetted. So, okay, so 3G. So basically what this means is it's configured to 2G, but you have the option to put it on 3G. So all of these came standard with a slower 3G speed than regular 3G to keep battery life good. So iPod. This is, you can have, so basically TV out, there was an adapter to plug the 30-pin connector into the RCA cable that Apple does not make anymore, but that was something you could do. And then this is it. This is seriously just the settings of this iPhone. iPhone 4 has so much more setting controls, but this one is very, very limited. Going back out, calculator. Does it turn? Okay, so this is when this was added. So this was not in the first version of iOS, but they added it in the second version to give people like Pi and more features. Or in the App Store don't work, but if we go into iPod, it just playlist. There's nothing here because this phone was contacts. There are no contacts in here. Yeah, I kind of showed how to make. Let's see if this is any different. Okay, so the next segment of this video is going to be about the Contacts app. When the Contacts app was first developed, it looked drastically different than the Contacts app we have now. So if you want to add a new contact, you got to choose its ringtone, add a their phone number, email, URL, and fields like birthday, date, job title, and department. All right, so now we're going to be taking a look into the clock app. The clock app of the original iPhone and the iPhone 3G was very, very similar in the fact that nothing really changed between the two. We actually didn't get a real major update to that clock app until iOS 7. And as in this video, you can see you have your international time zones, your alarms, your stopwatch, and your timer, and that was it. And then now I'm going to show you a list of all the sounds that came with the original iPhone and iPhone 3G from iOS 2. That's probably one of the most famous ones. Now we're going to go through the list, and the list is provided in the video. We're going to go through them individually down the line. Here are all of the text message tones from the iPhone OS 2. Some of them you may recognize as tritone, chime, glass, horn, bell, and electric. And this sums it up for the sounds of the iPhone 3G. Now, those are all the sounds that were on there. We got a lot more sounds over the years collectively, but those are the originals. One of the other things I need to add is the Mail app. The Mail app did not change very much in iPhone OS 2 from iPhone OS 1. And the only real changes with the Mail app came with the settings in iOS 3. And you can check that out in my video where I shoot my original iPhone, which has iOS 3 on it. And those are where some of the more major UI changes come from. The main purpose of iOS 2 was to get the iPhone ready for app support and third-party apps. And that was really one of the biggest changes to it. It functioned a lot like the original OS. The Stocks app. So now we're going to transition into the Stocks app and talk about that a little bit. And it's essentially the same thing as the original iPhone stock app. And if you want to see the man, the myth, the legend, Steve Jobs go through the Stocks app, you can watch the keynote of the original iPhone and scroll to the end, and there's going to be a video with him explaining all the features of the Stocks app there. And that's going to be the video. I hope you enjoyed learning about iOS 2 and all of the fun features.